Okay, so we were just sitting here talking, and I'm going to go ahead and let you restart the story that you were telling. And I'm going to hear it for the first time with everybody.
The man was incarcerated in jail, and he escaped. And law enforcement was looking for him. The sheriff was out there, and they found him. He was behind a rock, and when they found him, he stood up. He was unarmed, and he stood up, put his hands up, and as he started walking out from behind the rock, the sheriff just pulled his gun out and shot him for no apparent reason. He had escaped from jail, that's all. And there was nothing ever done about it. It was covered up, but the sheriff shot the man. And he got away with it. And that shows that, now this was in a county area.
Right. Of Tennessee, of course.
Yeah, in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And that's not an isolated incident.
Right.
It happens more often than not.
And there wasn't just the sheriff, there were other deputies and officers
there,
and stuff. Yeah.
They were searching for the escapee, and when they found him, the sheriff shot him.
And they never found nobody knew a reason that they knew him
or anything on him. And in fact, he was still in the same clothes that they put him in the cell with. It wasn't in street clothes or anything like that. He had on the county attire that prisoners wear.
Yeah.
And so there was no mistake about who he was.
Right.
But the sheriff shot him, killed him. And nothing ever come of it. Nothing was ever done about it.
I mean, did it make the papers and stuff? And they just said he escaped and had
No.
So it just never was reported or anything?
Didn't make local papers or anything.
No.
Wow.
So I know another guy that was trying to get a permit to carry a gun, and this was years before that you could take a course and get a concealed carry permit.
Yeah.
And this guy was trying to get a permit, and he went to this same sheriff and told him what he was looking for. And the sheriff, to get around all the business about it, deputized him.
Wow.
And that allowed him to carry a gun. But he told him that if you carry this outside the county, you can be charged. So what the sheriff did was give him a warrant for a man that they had never been able to find, and probably dead at the time. He said, if you go out of the county and you get questioned about your gun, he said, you show them this warrant and that you have information that the guy's in that area, and that'll be the end of it. So that's how they work around things like that.
And I know a bondsman back home that's got a similar story to that. If that's how years ago, we're talking in the 80s, that he was able to carry. Yeah. He got deputized because there was bounty hunting regulations, and that's how they were able to get around them, and he was able to do his bounty hunting. Wow.
So it's really crooked, and they do whatever they want, and they know enough about how the law works that they can work around it.
Just skirt it just
up.
enough to bend it but not break it.
Right.
Gotcha. When it comes to the big business, like the drug trafficking trade, especially, like the major drug trafficking that goes on in some of the poorer areas, that especially the ones that with NAFTA, a lot of the industry, the textile industry, the furniture industry left, went overseas, totally left the area, and left them kind of void of any way to support them economically. A lot of people returned to dog fighting, cockfighting. I just saw pens right off of a major road, and I think it's the border of Sullivan and Greene counties, kind of just a country road stretch. But it was, for anybody that knows anything about cockfighting, to get a visual of it, it was pretty obvious. The way the pens were set up, and it wasn't where they hold the fights, but you could tell that they were raising these birds, and it wasn't like the chicken farms that was owned by Case Farms and them I seen growing up. It wasn't like one of those. It's mini coops is the way, and you could see up the talons, I forget what you call this part, and the little goatee hanging. You could just tell by the way the birds were kept and done. You could tell what they were there for.
There was another deputy that would stop people, and if he found any drugs in their car, marijuana or anything like that, he would confiscate it.
Or purses.
And not turn it in.
A constable in this area was busted for that.
And so whenever he did that, he would contact another guy, which will remain nameless, and have him sell it.
Oh, wow.
And split the money. And he made a lot of money that way.
So one of these counties, though, and towns are going broke. You don't have the evidence
but the guy
to turn it,
The guy that was selling it was never charged, because this guy was the deputy, and if anything come up, he'd smooth it over.
Got you.
And so that's the way that went down. And
that makes sense for a similar situation right now. Second cousins.
So anyway, cover-ups all over the place.
Yeah. But it has to be beneficial, of course, to those that are
they have
up
to
somehow. They have to get something out of
it. They have to be getting something out of it.
Would you think a sheriff in that area would be able to afford a house that was valued, just a house, at close to $100,000 and on 80 acres of land?
No.
It's not all of it, though.
Not unless he inherited it.
If he did, then his brother, also an ex-DEA agent in that same county in Tennessee we're speaking of, one of the poorest in Tennessee that we've been talking about. The brother also owns 80 acres of land. His house is valued at $129,000. And he's got, like farm, like the hay, like where we store hay, in the little farm buildings, and there's cars, there's multiple vehicles and such for both of them. And it just, when it's making headlines all across Tennessee, that if this county doesn't get their budget in order, they're facing the same thing they were in 2014, which is the state of Tennessee taking them over and then becoming unincorporated, which means they lose all federal and state grants and benefits because their budget's out of order. And you have sheriff's deputies for the county standing up and saying, I've tried to move back in with my parents. I have took my health insurance away so I don't have to pay that, and I still can't afford to live on what they're paying me. The city of Rogersville police department pays nearly double to their officers what the county sheriff's department is paying in Hawkins.
Well,
and mind you, now the city is inside the county.
Well, see, there again, if the deputies are not getting paid that well,
they're leaving. They're leaving.
Then there's a certain amount of money granted for each county to maintain what has to be done.
Exactly.
And if the deputies are not getting it, somebody else is.
Right. And we're talking these people are making under 10 an hour.
Probably the guy that has the $100,000 house and the 80 acres of land.
Well, and I mean, it seems, you know, when you have somebody that has a residence that's in that county, but they're related to somebody high up, and you're looking back over the years. Back in 2009, they had charges. This man and his girlfriend, quasi-wife, and one of which was maintaining a dwelling, Schedule 2 substance. Now, I'm going to drop a little mic in this moment because I did some research and had somebody else from Tennessee that's a YouTuber, RJ, shout out, give me a heads up on something. In that year, 2000, I think it was 2008 that the law got passed, and it was changed either 2011 or 2012. But the specific, where it said not registering, it's something about not registering your medications. That specific law, come to find out, that they got charged under, they were acquitted, and then they got lesser charges. That were misdemeanor, not felony, that they pled guilty to and got probation, that they're still on. And it was 2009. They've not paid their probation fees, but they're still out here driving around and everything. And they've had probation violations. But anyway, that law that we specifically looked at, and I can bring it back up when I'm in a live stream, but that law that we specifically looked at, what I found was that specific, it's like not properly registering your script. It has something to do with it. Sounds like that you were a doctor almost making a prescription and you didn't properly register it with the authorities. Well, that law was passed, and during 2009 when they were charged and convicted, that was a special law that only applied to the possession of, sale of, and manufacture of methamphetamines. So all this time that we were thinking these two individuals were possibly pain pills because of the condition, the cancer and such this one had, and because we knew the one had admitted to selling marijuana, we're thinking it was one of those two substances. But with what I found out about that particular general statute for Tennessee, now it's changed. The law changed, and I want to say it was 2012. But it was passed in 2008. It was specifically to apply, the way that that's worded in that specific number, was specifically to apply to deal with methamphetamines only. That was the only substance that one covered. And to find that out and match the time frame pretty much, seals the deal. I can't find any record. Allegedly, according to the locals, there was land that was seized during that time and sold, but I'm not finding any record of it. Auctioned off. Might be part of it. 40 acres and a mule, you're supposed to. But I wonder, one theory that's making the rounds and becoming real well too, but one that would actually be hopeful to the other, is that maybe there was one of the locals in that area that dabbles on the dark side of the train tracks, per se, and is related to those in power, and family has been there since 1700s, that the parents owed money to that individual for their drugs, and that individual may be holding the little girl, and so much national and international media attention has come down and been there that she can't just turn up, or just be released back to the parents without some sort of explanation. Even though their story, their timeline and stuff, there's a lot of discrepancies, there's been a lot of lies. At the end of the day, there's a little girl that's turned 6 that's still missing. And everybody surrounding her has ties to RSO, which is registered offenders, that we're not kind of allowed to say on the airwaves. But, literally, on the mama's side, on the daddy's side, the neighbors, the person down the street, the neighbor across the street had one using their Wi-Fi that wasn't supposed to be. All this is occurring all around the time that this little girl goes missing. So it's kind of to pick which is the lesser evil sometimes, it seems. Or to pick out what might have happened. But motive is what you go back to. You got parents that have no explanation as to really how they have a vehicle that's a 2021, that there's not a loan, there's not a lien on it. Title's been pulled and run, it's not a lien on it. It's been paid for.
A 2021 vehicle right now costs you $30,000.
Yep.
Anything.
It's a Suzuki, 4-wheel drive Suzuki.
Oh, well.
You think they had sold that girl?
You're talking.
It's registered as a white vehicle, though, and it's red. And it's been registered as a white vehicle.
Sound like a cover-up to me.
You think that they've sold her? Or gave her away?
That's one of the big thoughts, is that the parents would have sold her to somebody to pay off their debt.
Wow. And if she's not in that area, she could be anywhere.
Well, and that's the thing, the sheriff's department, the local sheriff's department, the detective over it, they keep searching the same area. They've been back to search the same 2.5 mile radius area 3 times. And it's within the 2.5 mile area of where the parents' home is. They own 11.8 acres.
Well, it's common sense that if you don't find something in one place, you expand.
Right.
Expand.
Yeah.
But the authorities prevented that. Like when EquiSearch was there to search, they're an accredited search team. They were confined to that search area. They waited 6 months to really come out and tell that their hands were tied when they were searching. They've also been denied the ability to come back and search, which is why, between that and the blood ties with authorities and people that hold seats of power, commissioners, such, and the way things have played out, is why a lot of people are saying that there's some type of cover-up or corruption. Or was this something that was just dreamed up and done to somehow make money?
I agree with her. The little girl could be anywhere.
Well, and that's the whole reason for the putting
allowed.
flyers out at truck stops and getting off the highways and getting the attention.
These sex traffickers,
Mm-hmm.
they don't go around truck stops and places like that. They have